Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and what an honor it is to bring in a cat that I've had on my radar for some time, steeped in the East Bay grease, so to speak, the funk and the rock, which was a far cry from the San Francisco scene, which was more of a skiffle scene, but I guess has played with a lot of decorated acts, including David Blue, Batdorf, and Rodney. Rick Carlos, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Well, thanks for having me, Jake.
Can you just talk a little bit about how you developed your inner time feel on your instrument? I mean, were you somebody that kind of learned to feel the music before you learned to read the music?
Well, that's all I got to use is feel. I never learned how to read music, but I can feel it for sure. It's the only way I can play. I can't count beats and play. Just have to play. So what were some of, can you talk about, meaningful experiences early in your life before your career started where, did you know Larry Miller? He worked at a guitar store in Antioch, I think. I'm just curious about where you got, you started, were able to grow as a musician. Yeah, well, I was lucky. One day I had no intention of playing a musical instrument. One day my mother told me I had to go shopping with her. I think I was 15. And she took me to the shopping center and dropped me off at a music store. And she said, "You have a guitar lesson." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "Go in there. You have a guitar lesson." So I started playing guitar, learning guitar. And in high school, I forget what grade I was in, I was working on something, maybe a speaker cabinet. And a guy came up to me and he said, "I hear you play guitar." And I could barely play guitar, but I was. And he goes, "Why don't you come over and play with my band?" So I did. It turned out we had 3 guitar players and a drummer. And after a while, I decided I wanted to switch to bass. Didn't need 3 guitar players. So I switched to bass, and then I played an outdoor gig with that group. We were all still really young.
This is in Concord?
Yeah, this was in Concord.
Unbelievable, dude. Wait, was this Terracotta Band?
This before that.
What was the name of this band?
I don't remember the name.
All right, so you switched to bass. You're playing at Concord Park or whatever?
Yeah, it was outdoors. And there was a local band named the Canteens. It was an all-girl band. And their manager was at the park gig. And I guess their bass player was leaving or something. And so she got in touch with me, and we got together and we talked. And then she told me how much work they had. They were playing military gigs.
Like VFW kind of gigs, or?
It was...
Or like bass, going to the bass and playing?
Yeah, the bass. We
bass.
got it was all Fort Ord and Treasure Island and Mather Air Force Base. So after I joined that group, it was by then there was 2 girls left and me and then another guy playing guitar.
Still no name for the band?
And we were called the Mod Squad.
The Mod Squad. What were you playing original tunes?
Nope.
Were you playing like Otis Redding, or what were you playing?
We were playing the current hits back then. There was a lot of Motown stuff.
This is like 65, you say?
Yeah, it could be 65.
65, so like James Brown and the Flames, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Dig.
And I remember playing rock. We were doing some Beatles stuff, and then, whatever the top 40 was back then, we pretty much covered. And I got to work a lot with that group all through high school, pretty much.
Wow.
So I actually made some money.
You were able to put some money away. So the Mod Squad, and then you feel like so you're telling me the first lesson, the first day that your mom dropped you off, you met this cat?
No, it was a couple of months after. And what was the name of the place you took lessons at?
I think it was called Music Land in Concord.
Music Land. I mean, so at that point, Brent Midland, was he in like another band that would play opposite with you?
Yeah, later on, after I left that group that was doing all the cover material because I wanted to play original stuff.
Sure.
So I ended up playing with a great drummer named Dave Blanchard and a guitar player named Tom McLean and another great guitar player named Gary Klontz, and we were called Shag Nasty.
Shag Nasty. Dude, Blanchard sent me. Now, I don't know if you... he sent me a CD of... Well, anyway, I'm sorry to cut you off. I know Blanchard, dude.
Yeah. So...
what was the... And you would say that was original, like, Parliament Funkadelic kind of stuff?
No, it was Cream. It was rock.
But extended rock. It wasn't surf rock.
No, it was more Hendrix, Cream, power trio stuff.
I dig. And so then so Shag Nasty, did you have viable gigs in and around the sort of that East Bay area, or were you mainly staying local?
We were pretty much local. And we would play whatever outdoor shows were going on. And that's when Brent was also, I forget what band he was in. I didn't pay much attention to keyboard players back then. But we ended up playing, actually Shag Nasty, Gary Klontz left. Shag Nasty had Brent come over and play with us. I think Dave Blanchard knew Brent, so he invited Brent over to play with us. And we didn't think it worked out. We still wanted to be a power trio, so we didn't hook up with Brent right away. But then a little later on, we got military gigs again somehow, and that was with Brent. And he joined the group. And
Shag Nasty was playing military bass gigs.
Yeah.
That is epic. And so would Brent bring like all his rigs? Like, to me, like, he'd fit right into a power trio if he had his, synth Moogs and all his keyboard, like playing maybe just Rhodes, maybe not, but that dude had, I don't know, that dude's had chops. I don't know if he had chops back then.
He did. He, by the time I played with him, he was just a really good player. He could pretty much play anything. And, God, we used to help him carry that Hammond B3 and those Leslie cabinets, and it's no wonder I have a bad back now.
Yeah, dude, man. Rick Carlos, man, this is such a high honor, man, to talk to you, man. So you're carrying his rig. You guys there was no roadies at that point for Shag Nasty.
No, I don't think I ever even heard of roadies by then.
How would you describe Brent as like just like a person? Did he always, he seemed, at least for a variety of different reasons, like he was never truly comfortable in his own skin, but that's really from the outside, and I'd love you to talk a little bit about like just him as a person at that time.
Well, he was quirky.
Right.
He didn't have great social skills. So I think, it took all of his energy just to function as a musician, pretty much. And he was kind of into this biker thing. He always dressed like the local bikers did in our area. That T-shirt, vest, denim pants.
Dude, what was that? There was some sort of infatuation with that? There wasn't like Hell's Angels.
Yeah. I don't know. He had a friend, a really close friend. His name was Earl something, and I think he was into bikes. And I don't know, Brent just kind of got into that whole look. He never changed that look. he had a little uniform, you know.
No, I want to go back to this for a second. Like, was he at that? Because I think he was definitely brought up in a classical setting. I mean, he had quite a bit of formal training. Mark Rodney told me in our interview that when Brent, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but when he came into the band originally, Batdorf and Rodney, when you brought him in, Brent told Mark, he goes, I really can't improvise. And so Mark started playing him a lot of McCoy Tyner and a lot of, Bill Evans, and he got it really quickly. And it wasn't like Batdorf and Rodney was Mahavishnu Orchestra or even the Oblivion Express or, like freaking, Rob Matoiza. Who played bass with the Sons of Champlin, by the way, when you saw them? Did you see them live?
I did not see them live, but I think at one point they had the bass player from Moby Grape. Can't remember. Bob Mosley, was it?
Bob Mosley. Gee, no, I mean, the point is that were your did you the stuff that you did with Shag Nasty? Was that really deep improvisation? I mean, Cream and Hendrix, yeah, that is. But were you guys able to stretch out at that point, or were you still? Where were you at that point?
Well, we weren't. We weren't jazz players,
right?
So
you were funk players, dude.
We were pretty much rock players. When we started doing the military gigs with Brent, we got into more funk, more R&B, and then I was really a big fan of, Tower Power and Rocco.
Oh my God, dude! And you want to talk about, dude? No, dude, he is definitely you're like all feel, all by ear,
Yeah.
What a cool cat. So you were doing, but again, original too. Is there any material of you guys?
There is. In fact, Dave Blanchard has tapes of us, 1968, maybe.
Blanchard sent me a CD of Shag Nasty. It's some of the filthiest stuff I've ever. I have to get a new copy from him. Brent's like, there's a couple of tracks where he's kicking pedals, but he didn't need to do that. I mean, could he kick pedals very well, or was he more of a left-hand bass player?
He could kick pedals. I wasn't in the band when I saw him. He didn't use them when I was playing with him.
Sure.
Thankfully.
You would have crushed him. Yeah.
But when I saw him, he played with Tom McLean and Dave Blanchard as a trio, and I saw them at a club in Oakland, and he was kicking pedals, and it was no problem. He could play just about anything with his feet. It was amazing.
Oh, my. Tom McLean? Who is this cat, man?
McLean's a local Concord guy. I've known him since second grade.
Dude, Rick Carlos, man. Oh, my God, man. At that time, I just want to be clear about something. Were you a music fan before your mom put you in that class, or did everything just magnetize once you first connected with those pre-Mod Squad cats?
I was fortunate. I had 4 older sisters, and they were into dancing and into music. So there was always music in the house.
Oh, man. Good vibes, man.
That I heard was, they really liked Motown. So I heard just a whole bunch of that.
So you got that Jamerson feel down.
I tried.
So Blanchard has copies. Live Shag Nasty, did you guys stretch more, or was it generally how big a rig did Brent have at that point? He had an organ, but did he have like all keyboards too?
I think he had a Rhodes, and I don't remember him. I don't think he had synths yet. It was still early. I think it was just a B3 and the Rhodes.
I listened back today. It was just smiling ear to ear, listening to my interview with John Mosseri, and I just want you to talk a little about. This is fascinating. I don't know if you guys ever got in the studio, but when the Terracotta, that band you were in, you came to Vegas. I just wanted you to paint the picture for the audience, that story. What that band? What were you guys? What was the vision of that band? Because Mark Rodney was a fanatical Terracotta fan.
Yeah, Shag Nasty morphed into Terracotta, basically.
Really?
We added Archie Johnson.
Oh boy, what did he play?
Archie was a singer-songwriter, guitar player.
Damn.
And
Shag Nasty, man.
Really, really talented. So we had a 3-guitar band at that time. It was Gary Klontz, Tom McLean, Archie Johnson, myself, and Blanchard. And Archie got a connection in Vegas, and he wanted us all to move to Vegas. And Dave Blanchard was younger, and his parents wouldn't let him go. But the rest of us moved. And then the manager that we had in Vegas started auditioning drummers, and he's the one that found Masseri. That's when Masseri joined the band, and it became Terracotta.
So, because what he said was, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about how you, just in general, work with, he said we couldn't have come from different ends of the spectrum in terms of our musical interests. He talked about you being more Tower of Power, Sons of Champlin, East Bay, that kind of funk, and he was coming from more of the folk rock scene, but he said you guys just locked in simultaneously, quickly, and I kind of wanted you to talk a little bit about, sort of you're a perfect example of somebody that, you picked up, you had early experience with rhythm and vibe, and you picked up an instrument, and, and anybody can do it. And I just wanted you to talk about the intangibles of working in a rhythm section, even if people are coming from different musical spectrums.
Yeah, I heard Masseri say that in the interview. But I also had a real heavy rock background,
right?
Besides the funk thing. But there was something about when John came to that group, there was something, we had like the same kind of thought process. He would do a fill about the same time I was ready to do a fill. And it just felt good. He could lock in. He was a good timekeeper, which was real important.
Absolutely. And
it was just one of those things that clicked. It's kind of hard to explain, but it just worked out really well.
Did it get, by the time it became Bob Weir Band, was it becoming telepathic? It's maybe my favorite. It's my favorite Bob Weir. It's Bob Weir Band before Bobby and the Midnights. Probably the most happy sounding non-dead Bobby music. I shouldn't say that, but it's so beautiful, man. You played all these college gyms and stuff. At that point, was it? Did you get into a I guess what I'm saying is, did you share some good experiences off the bandstand so you learned to trust each other on the bandstand?
We were very good friends. So that helped, I think. John and I, we supported each other. And by the time we got into playing with Bob Weir, it was some tough music. It was technical music. And Weir always had ideas for the drums, so he would tell John, I want this, I want that, I want this, and then I would play along, obviously, but I don't think we had like a telepathic connection.
Right, there was a lot of micromanaging coming from Bobby, I guess.
Yeah, it was more complicated than what we did in Terracotta.
Well, I want to go back to, first of all, why did Brent leave Shag Nasty? You didn't mention him with Archie Johnson.
Yeah, there's a big space in between.
Wow.
We had back in Concord. We were with Archie, the 3 guitar players, myself and Dave Blanchard, and before we moved to Vegas, we moved to, where was it? No, it was after Vegas. God, it's confusing. But anyway, Brent wasn't with us. We got a gig in Seattle, and we needed a keyboard player. So Brent joined us, and we were getting ready to do gigs up there, and we got this contract thing with a chain restaurant. I think it was called Beef and Brew. And Archie got us that
Beef
contact.
and Brew, baby.
Yeah, so we were going to do this chain of restaurants with, and Brent was with us, and we had this meeting with the executives from Beef and Brew chain, and their family was with them and their children, and we are all sitting around this huge table, and we had just talked about what we were going to do. Everything was great. We were all set to cinch up this deal, and they were toasting. The executives were toasting the family and each other. And Brent, I don't know if he had a few too many, but he got up and he made a toast.
Oh, my God.
And he said, here's to you and here's to me. And if we should ever disagree, fuck you. And here's to me. And we lost the gig.
Holy shit. Dude, you just went to Never Everland on me, man. That is insane.
We told Brent, we told Brent, hey, you lost the gig for us, man. We're with these people and they're insulted and you insulted their kids. And he went into the men's room and he punched a mirror in the men's room and broke his arm, broke his hand. And we all had to go, basically we're all going back to Concord or wherever we were going because we had no gig and we had no money. And I remember Brent loading up a U-Haul with his arm in a cast. And it was just start over.
I'm not sure. Okay, so that fractured things with Brent.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, and so with Terracotta, Blanchard was the drummer in Terracotta.
He was until we went to Vegas.
Right. And does Blanchard have recordings of Terracotta?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody does.
How would you describe that music? I mean, what was Archie play? He was a singer. Obviously, there were great vocal bands at that time. How were you going to find your niche? How did you find your niche?
It was, the three guitar players and the vocals. It was kind of very Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And Archie was a big Steve Stills fan.
So and it was three guitars. How would they? What roles would they serve? I mean, would they all solo at different points?
Yeah, because everyone was an excellent soloist, and they would play. The Allman Brothers, they would play harmony guitar parts for solos, and then individual solos. So it was guitar intense band for sure.
Wow. And so then you get down. And Mosseri gets your people find him, and then, but then ultimately he's playing with Terracotta. Do you remember when Rodney first laid eyes on you?
I don't. Mark told me later on, and so did John Mosseri. He said that Mark Rodney he kept asking to jam. Okay, can I jam with you guys? Can I jam with you guys?
Wow.
And everybody told him no. You can't. We're not interested. We got our own thing going. But I don't even remember ever meeting Mark Rodney in Vegas.
Are you kidding me?
I didn't pay any attention if he was asking to jam. He didn't ask me.
No, but I mean, Carlos. He said that. Well, no, he was he loved the band. He loved Terracotta, but you don't remember that at all.
No, I don't remember.
Oh, that's so priceless. That is absolutely priceless, man. So, well, then you moved to L.A. and the band falls apart. Mosseri said he actually cried like a baby. I mean, it's good to cry, but I don't want. It's very healthy. But where did you go after the band dissolved? Did you stay down there? Did you even remotely think about getting into the studio scene at all, or what was the deal?
No, I was never that kind of player.
I know.
Yeah. Not being able to read, I wasn't a studio player.
Totally.
I went back home. I went back, and McLean and I hooked up with Blanchard again in Concord. I was living with my parents, and we just started over with that band.
Wow, starting from scratch. How did you...
So it was Shag Nasty again.
Ultimately, can you just talk about how maybe you didn't... How did you handle the ups and downs? I mean, that is just... I mean, my heart kind of broke a little bit when you told me that story about Beef and Brew, man. Like, it just breaks my heart because... That's like the self-destructive phase coming out, and I'm surprised you guys didn't kill him. I mean, dude, it's insane, man. And so how did you deal with the ups and downs of it? And ultimately, did you get out of music at all because of that?
Not at that point, no. I was, my parents were really supportive of me. Even when I first started playing and I switched to bass, my dad took me to the music store and bought me a brand new Hofner bass and a Fender Bassman amp. So I had support to go back home whenever I needed to. So I wasn't too worried about it. I wasn't, I was upset losing the Beef and Brew gig, but on the other hand, I had a place to fall back to. So I was pretty secure.
Yeah. By the way, how long would that have been, like just sort of 6-month tour going across the country at Beef and Brew, or just regional?
I don't know where their chain went. I assume it was regional on the West Coast. And I don't remember ever hearing about how long it was supposed to be.
So Carlos heads back, McLean and Blanchard, you're back at Shag Nasty. Rodney... So how then did you reconnect with Rodney in Batdorf?
Yeah, I'm back home.
Right.
And Mosseri gives me a call. And he goes, look, I've been talking to Mark Rodney, who I didn't remember. And Mark Rodney's got this record deal with John Batdorf. And Mark wants us. He wants the rhythm section from Terracotta really bad because he loved the band. And so they sent me a tape, and it was their first album that they had done down at Muscle Shoals, Batdorf and Rodney's first album.
Yeah.
And so I was playing the tape at home, and I thought, this isn't my thing. It sounds like Buffalo Springfield and Crosby, Stills and Nash to me. It's really not what I do best. I'm really, at bottom line, I'm a rock bass player, John Entwistle mode. That's my niche right there.
I did, and that was a little bit too. I mean, Batdorf and now Rodney was very sort of singer-songwriter, a little bit very flowery kind of music in some ways,
and all acoustic,
right?
Basic. But my mother was sitting there listening to the music with me, and I'm going, no, this isn't what I do. And she goes, you know what? You need to leave Concord. You need to go to Los Angeles and do this.
Wow.
You can't just stay here in Concord because it's, where are you going to go here? So that was when I decided to go ahead and go down to L.A. and meet up with everybody, with Batdorf, Rodney, and Mosseri, and just hang out until whatever was going to happen with them was going to happen. Because their album, I guess, they called it off the shelf because it got held up for so
long. And then Rodney's all hot up for that weaving guitars, but somehow Brent finds himself back in the mix. How did you guys? You guys like taped his mouth shut? Like, what'd you do?
We did most of the work with Batdorf and Rodney and Misseri and myself was without Brent. Didn't bring Brent on yet. We did a lot of touring with those guys. Did the second album with Batdorf and Rodney. Toured for that. And then...
just as a quartet?
Yeah. And then...
Wow. And you were opening for, like, Bread.
Yeah, Bread and Billy Preston.
Are you kidding? Dude, that's what I remember him saying. Just how many... That's killer, man, to be able to open for all those acts, you know? That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Played a lot of nice venues. We even, we did Carnegie Hall opening for the Youngbloods. We got 3 standing ovations. So it was really something.
You know, man, that's... So you go down to L.A., did you get in the studio right away, or did you tour first?
I think we did the second album, and then we started touring.
Right. You made sense. You're promoting the album, for the company.
Yeah.
So basically, and all of a sudden you find yourself on how within how little time between your mom giving you the pep talk did you wind up on the Carnegie Hall stage?
That might have been a year.
Oh
I'm not really
that's
clear.
So amazing. What an amazing situation. So it was pretty. I mean, that's a pretty nice deal. And then what was the incentive or impetus to? And how did you even? I mean, LA is full of amazing keyboardists,
Yeah, it is. Well, the money ran out for touring with a rhythm section for Batdorf and Rodney. And we ended up touring as a trio, Batdorf, Rodney, and myself. And then, I'm trying to figure out. So many things happened at different times.
You were playing like you weren't playing upright. You were just playing electric bass.
Yeah, just electric bass.
Wow.
And I still had basically almost the same sound. Live in concert with Misseri, I had the same growly kind of rock bass sound. But then when we did the trio thing, obviously that wasn't going to work. So playing with Batdorf and Rodney was really good for me because I had to go into a more nuanced kind of playing instead of just, hitting it really hard.
Can you talk about that? I mean, that's more about like the way you, the placement of the notes, or more about like actual pressure that you're putting on the strings itself? I mean, how does that work in the motor sense?
It was, it was playing in, right hand, different positions. If I wanted a more distinct bass part in their song, like Home Again, it was pretty bass heavy. I would play that in a different position closer to the neck. And then for softer songs, it was a good lesson in dynamics, playing with less pressure and then playing in different positions with the right hand.
That's fascinating. And then just because you may not have been, without a drummer, did the venues change when you just went out as a trio?
Yeah, we did. I think we did smaller, did more theaters and smaller clubs.
Unbelievable. And I just want to, so I don't want to forget this because is David Blue, how does he come into the picture?
Well, initially, when Batdorf and Rodney ran out of money to keep a rhythm section,
right?
Batdorf was having a meeting with Richard Hartman, I think, and Hartman told Batdorf, the money's not there, et cetera, et cetera. And he said he had a gig for Masseri and myself to hook up with David Blue and to do some touring to promote David's new album. So that's how we ended up with David Blue. It was through Batdorf.
And this was in between the second and third albums? What was the chronology here?
Yeah, this was, I believe, in between second and third.
And so you went out with Blue, and then what was that? What was that experience? What was that cat's vibe about? I mean, those records. I never even know if it's interesting. I mean, I'm much more of a kind of person like that doesn't want to hear the record played note for note at a concert, and I just wonder like what his shows were like in a live setting. If they became a formula trip, how did you stay inspired?
He was basically a folkie. And so initially I went in there thinking, okay, I'm going to change my strings. I'm going to put some flat wound strings on my bass so that's real mellow and just play along with David's style of folk music, But when we got to SIR Studios and we started rehearsing, Don Felder was a guitar player. He's a rocker. And I'm thinking, well, this is pretty cool, And
Wait, then, Don Felder was in the band?
Yeah, it was Don Felder on guitar.
Oh, my God, dude, that's nasty.
And Felder says to me, he's looking at me playing with these flat wound strings. He goes, have you ever played Roto Sound bass strings? I go, yeah, I've been playing them for 10 years, And I switched back to my Roto Sound round wound strings and just got to cut loose with my good old rock growly tone, because Felder and I and Masseri, we just basically rocked David Blue's stuff, and it was a blast.
What is there any recordings of that live?
Not that I know of.
I'm just saying, like you guys would leave the head of the certain tunes would lend themselves to stretching out.
Yeah,
that's so beautiful.
Not really stretching out, but dynamically,
yeah, like just down. Sort of just taking people on a trip, short trip,
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. And I mean, at least you were able to sing for your supper. I mean, did you go across the country or was it just regional?
We went across the U.S. And we were opening, it was really odd, we were opening for some of my favorite bands. We opened for Deep Purple a lot, and we opened for Savoy Brown. And I loved Savoy Brown, so I went out every night after we opened and listened to those guys. And also Rory Gallagher.
Yeah.
And
jeez, this is nasty, man. This is such beautiful Americana, man. I mean, there was really domestic tour. There were so many domestic touring circuits. I mean, the record companies had so much money, and it just the cost of living wasn't as high. I know you must have. I mean, was Terracotta a band that? Did you ever play like? I mean, we talked about the Outdoor Concord gigs. Terracotta play. Did you ever have an engagement in like? What the late Mike Finnegan would say, like a month-long engagement in some upholstered sewer somewhere. Did you ever play like the nasty bars? Like to me, like that. I haven't heard you talk about that experience yet.
No, I didn't.
You have lived this magical existence, dude. You walk in to get guitar lessons. You get connected to music. You never played upholstered sewers. That's great. You're lucky.
Yeah, I was lucky because when I went to see McLean, Brent, and Blanchard, they were playing at a dive in Oakland.
But see, like that's. I mean, I would have lived there. Do we remember the name of that place, by the way?
Yeah, it was called Anne's New Mo.
And it was a Vietnamese restaurant, wasn't it?
I don't know what it was, but it was funky, and there was guys carrying knives and fighting in the bathroom, and just it was pretty greasy.
Dude, it's so great you said that. I cannot believe you said that. I just want to be clear. Anne's New N-E-W Mo M-O?
Yeah.
Anne's New Mo. Dude, in Oakland. It was so greasy in there, man.
East 14th Street.
Oh, my God. This is so great, man. So, like, did you, when after Brent freaked out with the Beef and Brew Cats? I mean, did you did you cut off contact with him? How did you reconnect with him?
Batdorf and Rodney, we got back together. God, it's hard to figure all this stuff out.
They actually split up for a minute. They after they ran out of money, and then they came back.
Yeah, they came back.
I don't know either. I mean, I know it's kind of just the chronology is always kind of hazy for me.
It is. It's I get confused when this happened and when that happened. But at one point, we were back together, and they wanted to add a keyboard player and a singer. Batdorf and Rodney wanted to add that, and so I mentioned Brent. I knew Brent could sing, and I knew he was a good player. And so Brent came down to L.A. and joined Batdorf and Rodney. And I don't remember how many gigs we did with him at that point.
Right.
And
was he still just playing Rhodes at that point? Did he have a B3?
Yeah, he had the B3 and the Rhodes.
So there were certain songs that it's weird, man. Rodney said that he has the record that Brent's on with you guys. He says Brent's name is listed on the credits. I can never find his name there. It's so weird. It says you, Mosseri, rhythm section. Brent's not listed on the album, but Rodney was disputing me there. But he was the same thing with them when they came back together again. Was the music louder than before? And I mean, did Brent expand the music sonically?
Yeah, he did, but it wasn't. He played within the context of how the songs were supposed to work.
Yeah, no, he wasn't going out like Ornette Coleman. I get that. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Did you?
Brent never. Yeah. I don't know what Rodney's talking about. Brent never recorded with us with that quartet.
He never was in the studio with you guys.
No.
Thank you, man. I'm not insane because every time I pick up that record. So wait a minute. This is the thing. They recorded the album, but then when they were going on tour, they wanted to bring a keyboard player. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think it was after the third album with Batdorf and Rodney.
Right. It was after the third album. Brent was not on any of their albums ever.
No.
Thank you for clearing that up. And then they wanted a keyboard player and a singer, and then you called Brent for the live tour.
Yeah, once again I called Brent and got him out of Concord. Came down to L.A. and
got him out of Concord, man.
Yeah, for another tour of duty.
You guys were staying at one of their. Did you have places at that point? I know the first time around. You were crashing at one of you was Mosseri was crashing at one Batdorf or Rodney's. You were crashing at the other one.
Yeah, I was at Batdorf's apartment initially, and then later on we got a band house with the quartet. And then when Brent came down, I think we were staying at Batdorf's place in Kegel Canyon. I was living with Mosseri in some other, it was a nearby town. I can't remember the name of it. And I guess Brent was staying with Batdorf. I'm not sure. But we all had places to land at that point. And then, the shit hit the fan at one point.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we were getting ready to tour, I believe, with Brent. I mean, we had done some local LA gigs with Brent, and then we were getting ready to tour, I think. And then something happened with Rodney, and Batdorf didn't want to work with him.
How?
So we had this.
Go ahead.
we had this meeting. We had this meeting. God, what was it? We had a meeting anyway with Batdorf, Brent, Masseri, and myself, and John Hartman, I believe, and we went and played for him. Hartman Goodman went and played for them, but before we went to play for them, something felt strange to me because I told Masseri on the way to that meeting, I said, something's up. Something's up because Batdorf's not rehearsing us like he normally does. Because he was real specific about what he wanted, and things had gotten really loose. So John says, "No, there's nothing going on," And we got to that meeting, and we played a couple of songs, and then we went and signed some contracts, and that was going to be Silver.
Okay, I want to hold on for a second. So Batdorf doesn't want to work with Rodney anymore. You guys had already done some touring with Brent. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, just a little bit. You connect, and then that's right. The Silver Band originally, and to this day, even though I love Harry Stinson and Tom Ledden, to me it's one of the injustices of music history that you guys were pulled out of Silver.
Well, we didn't sing.
I know.
They wanted singers.
Talk about how did Collier come into the mix?
Collier.
Greg Collier. Greg Collier.
Oh, Greg, yeah. Yeah, I guess.
I'm really stretching you out here. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm really stretching, going down.
Yeah. Well, my recall,
No, it's fine. So you get in there. See, I'm sorry. I do continue the story. You guys are driving there. Mosseri said, "No, it's no big deal. Nothing's up."
Yeah, and I think Collier was there also. For some reason, I forgot about him in that group, but I remember learning some of his songs.
Right.
And I think he was there for that little the playing that we did and the meeting.
Right. So you auditioned, you played at some tunes, you signed what you thought was contracts, or they were contracts?
They would look like contracts to me, but I'm not a lawyer. So
right.
Who knows? And that Sarah, when we got the boot out of that, Masseri was adamant. He goes, "Well, I signed a contract. I am in Silver. We have contracts." But I didn't argue the case. I was like, "Okay, fine, that's it. I'm out of here."
Back to Concord? Where did you go?
Yeah, back to Concord.
That is... This is the greatest story ever, man.
I was lucky Shag Nasty always let me come back.
Dude, I'm so proud of... Dave Blanchard is a hero, man. A freaking hero.
Yeah. He is.
He's a dude. Shag Nasty and McLean, all those cats always let you come back in, dude.
Yeah, they did.
Where's Archie Johnson? Is he still with us? Where's he at?
Archie passed away about 2 years ago.
So this is like Heartbreak Hotel again, to a degree. You seem to be somewhat unflappable. You're fine going back to Shag Nasty, but this would have killed me, dude. And so, I guess when I interviewed Bobby and Bobby Cochran as well, and it was like this. Oh, Bob, there was this whole sort of pop rock explosion in the record industry. You had different examples of that in the 70s, and then Weir said that he was doing some talent scout, just scouting a rhythm section in L.A., and all of a sudden the magical nexus of Midland, Carlos, and Mosseri come back together again. What were you doing down there again? Yeah,
that was funny. John Masseri called me again.
Again, it's happening. It's repeating every time.
Yep. And I thanked Masseri, not too long ago. I thanked him for always bringing me along,
Yeah, totally, dude. That's so cool, man.
So he tells me we can audition for the Bob Weir band. And I'm pretty sure it was up here. So we went and we met Bob and Bobby Cochran. And, we had this kind of like a real casual audition that was, might have been almost acoustic kind of audition. And I didn't really impress Weir at that point. And then we had another audition.
Was Brent there? Was Brent there?
No.
Wow.
No Brent at this point. And then we had another audition that was, more in a studio, like SIR studio kind of thing, and then bigger amps and everything. And then Bob Weir was okay with me, but he could actually hear me do what I do, evidently.
Wow, that's. So you didn't go down to the club front to rehearse? You were at some other studios?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we were at studios up here, although I don't remember where they were.
Yeah.
Bob,
yeah.
Bob living up here, Marin County and all that. So
Bob was in Mill Valley, I think. I don't even know. But the point is, so you just heard through word of mouth that Bobby was. You finally made the cut with Bobby. He could hear you growling all over the place. You guys were the best rhythm section. I think that's what and Billy Cobham is like a dear friend, and I've interviewed him a bunch, and I love that band later on. But I got to tell you, man, the audience recordings coming out of that '78 tour are just bright and beautiful, man. You guys, everyone's separated very nicely. I don't know. It's just a magical pocket of time. I was born that year. That was the year I was born. 1978. And you guys were cooking the groove at like Yale. Bob Weir band at Yale.
Yeah.
So
right.
Beautiful, man. It's at that point it's just Cochran, you, Mosseri, and Weir. So again, we're trying to figure out how Brent got. What happened? Hold on, I'm trying to think about Brent. Silver. Oh, he stayed on with Silver, right?
Yeah, he joined Silver. He stayed on with Batdorf and Silver, and then they got that semi-hit. That weird.
awful, dumb hit, Shamalama Wang Banger.
Yeah, whatever it was called.
Wham Bam it was called.
Oh yeah, Wham Bam. I forgot the title. Yeah, I think that song was thoroughly out of context with what they really wanted to do.
Well, of course, but I mean, exactly. That's right. And but like they made it like an overly powerful. I mean, they lost the soul. Anyway. So Silver ran its course, right? I mean, they weren't getting another deal.
Yeah, they were done, and Brent went back to Concord.
Of course, I should have known that, man.
We always had this fallback. Go home.
Go home, man. Shag Nasty's always there, man.
So we're rehearsing with Cochran and Weir, and Bob Weir goes, I'd really like to get a keyboard player that sings.
Oh, my
And
God.
I look at John, and John looks at me, and he goes, I'm not playing with that motherfucker again. Because he knows I'm going to say, Brent's perfect for the gig, And he just did not want any part of working with Brent again because of Brent's quirks. It's not like Brent's a monster or anything. But I said, he'd be perfect for the Bob Weir band because he can play just about anything. And he's got great vocals.
And the whole band is quirky, man. Give me a break. I mean, Brent is not the quirkiest in the whole. But wait, hold on. I just want to be clear. Was Mosseri in the Terracotta implosion meeting? I'm sorry. No, the Beef and Brew.
Silver?
No, Beef and Brew.
Beef and Brew. No.
He was so. What was the bad taste he had? He just touring with Batdorf and Rodney. He didn't like. Brent was irritating him.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I guess you were just like, well, who's your suggestion? And he didn't have any, so you had to go with Brent, man.
Yeah, he finally, he
acquiesced. Yeah.
Yeah, he acquiesced, and I called Brent in Concord, and once again, told, hey, there's a potential gig for you, and he came up and rehearsed, and Weir liked him, and that was that. He was in band.
Wow. So ultimately, at that time, or can you talk a little bit about, like, would you guys just sort of spend time during sound checks? Did you have any aspirations about or visions about going in any other directions, or did that? Because the Bobby gig would be cool, but it would only be. I mean, you need to offset it with other things, I would think.
Well, I was married by then. I had one child. My wife worked, fortunately, and I was going to do the Bob Weir thing as long as I could, however long that lasted. I really enjoyed playing in that band. It was a really good lesson in dynamics. We could go from a whisper to a just slamming volume in a second. It was really cool.
I mean, I want to make sure this comes out right, but like it's just weird because you weren't playing like big, massive stadium shows. So like you had some amplification, but it wasn't overpowering. So the idea of dynamics was very relevant. Dynamics is such a missing key in modern all music today. It's really a remarkable thing that you, especially with the Bob Weir band. Bobby Cochran is like, he's just an incredible player. Brent is incredible. And it was just a lot of ebbs and flows, but it was because of the sound of the Palladium. It just sounded beautiful, man. The music just fit the room perfectly. It wasn't over amplified,
Yeah, it was loud on stage, but it wasn't to where you couldn't record it. It wasn't turned to mush. It was all clean.
Did you have situations back then when, like, if you couldn't hear yourself, or you couldn't hear other people? I mean, you guys weren't wearing in-ear monitors or anything. So, I mean, what do you kind of listen for in case you do have a hard time picking? And also, where were you on stage? Like, were you in between Mosseri and Brent, or were you on the other side of Brent? Where were you?
Yeah, I was usually on the left side. Mosseri would be to my right.
Right.
Bobby Cochran would be in front of me, basically. And I would go up front to sing, but the guitars between Cochran and Weir had this beautiful, clean sound, but it was very loud. And when it got to be too much, I would escape back to right in front of my amplifier and be close to Mosseri.
Wow.
And then Brent was all the way on the opposite side of the stage. And he'd get pissed. If he couldn't hear the bass, he would get really pissed off. But most of the time, he could hear it.
So he really was... was he on the spectrum with maybe like Asperger's syndrome? I mean, it sounds like he really had some social issues, dude. I mean, seriously, man, I'm biggest Brent Midland fan in the world, but this is a little bit revelatory to hear him just the self-implosion component and just sort of like the Tourette syndrome kind of stuff is insane. Because there were stories about that in the Dead. I mean, him and Phil would get in yelling matches on stage. I mean, it's just funny because the Dead was so big that they just could absorb. Brent was just not that big a deal. They just absorbed him right into that whole living organism. But in a regular group, he'd be a really snarky person.
Yeah, he never considered himself part of the Grateful Dead until he was actually in there for 10 years? I think then he thought, okay, I'm a member now.
Well, then he died.
Yeah.
Because, he was in 79. You're absolutely right. I mean, what did you enjoy most about, to me, Brent was like, he played with a lot of sense of humor. I think he's one of the greatest keyboardists of all time. Can you talk a little bit about how he grew from the time all these different, rings and circles of Concord and this and LA and beef and brew. Like, how did Brent grow in your mind? Because because at a certain point, I mean, I am the only period of time I listen to in the Grateful Dead is the early 1980s, and he is. Jerry sounds good. He's playing good guitar. Brent's musicianship is unbelievably high. He's the best, maybe the best musician in the band.
To me, he was always a good player. I mean, I only went to his house a few times, way before, when I first met him in the first Shag Nasty days. And all I ever heard at his place was jazz.
That is so sick,
Mark said, he was classically trained, and he was, but I know he listened to jazz pretty much well before Batdorf and Rodney.
I'm really happy to hear you say it. Well, no, because maybe he listened to it, but you didn't hear him like playing Jimmy Smith tunes or anything like that.
No, I heard him play. I can't remember the artist that he listened to the most. He was a piano player, and I heard him play some really nice stuff. I mean, classical stuff, and then jazz stuff on the B3. And
really, you heard him. You mean this was like back in the days, like in the early days, like
this was probably 67.
You heard him like Bill Doggett. He was listening to Bill Doggett or Earl Bostic or Wild Bill Davis. Those guys, or Jimmy Smith. I mean, those guys all played. So he actually could play jazz. That's very revelatory because. And I believe, I think Rodney, he just said something to the effect that Brent, he just kind of it was like osmosis when he started playing him. It was the first time he heard McCoy Tyner, but I don't know, because I think Blanchard told me that he walked into Brent's house and like he had crates of records and it was all like, jazz and fusion, and this may be a little bit later. You know who it was? There was another cat. I'm blanking on his name. I can't remember his name now, but it was Brent's best friend, and he said he used to walk into Brent's house and he'd have just a lot of fusion records and things like that.
Yeah, he did, and I actually played some Return to Forever. I remember playing some of that stuff with Brent in a band, which I don't remember too much about for some reason. But
I want you to remember it right now. That sounds insane. I need to hear you guys cooking the groove on Return to Forever, dude.
Yeah, I wish I could remember.
So that was somewhere in the milieu, like.
I think it was when we were doing military gigs with Brent.
So let's just get I want to get the military gigs started like 67-ish or 65, 66.
No, later.
69.
I was doing those gigs illegal. I was 17 when I was playing at those gigs, and we were supposed to be 21. But anyway,
what was it, like $100 a night? How much did you get a night?
I don't know, but it kept me in money, So
dude, honestly, I bet it was pretty good bread for the time, man.
It was. I was still in high school. I was 17. I was buying bass guitars.
Dude, you were having the time of your life, dude. Was, unbelievable, dude. So that was like
cheeseburgers.
Would you go down? Did you ever go to Oakland to go to the Continental Club? A lot of like Don Barksdale, all those cats. They owned all those black clubs. And did you go see a lot of that funk music, or were you just content to have cheeseburgers in Concord?
I was pretty content in Concord.
Dude, Concord is a magical place, man. Blanchard, Shag Nasty, Carlos, Midland. I mean, the whole thing. So, what was it like when after? How did the Bob Weir? Did that just sort of the tour ended and it was like, okay, we're going in? Bobby went in. He started the Midnights. Obviously, he went with a super group kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess him and Bobby Cochran jammed with those guys, and that he wanted to do that.
Yeah, it was a NAMM show jam with Al Johnson, Billy, and Steve Miller, and yeah. So when that wrapped up, like, did you see Brent? Once he joined the Dead, did you see him then?
I didn't see him very much. I had I remember going to a party of his that was outdoors and playing. He was playing some of his original stuff, and he wanted me to play along with it. But I had been out there for the whole day pretty much and been drinking, and I wasn't in any kind of mode to be playing what he was playing. And evidently that was why he didn't use me to record with him when he started doing his own stuff. And
I am so glad you brought that up, man. I mean, I'm sorry, like, because you weren't that studio session that exists. He had Mosseri on drums.
Yeah, I never heard it. I didn't know he used Mosseri either.
It's like 82 area, kind of like 1982 kind of range.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Did you explain, so you basically were like, Brent, I can't, he took offense to the fact that he didn't realize you were just too inebriated to play?
Yeah, he didn't. And, my wife at the time was pissed. She knew Brent from before the music days. And she called him up and she told Brent, you never thanked Rick for getting you out of Concord. Every time he got you out of Concord, and you didn't use him to record on your stuff. And Brent goes, well, he couldn't play my stuff because I auditioned him at that outdoor party that we had. And she goes, do you realize he had been drinking all day and he'd been in the set, and et cetera, et cetera. And then later on, I got a call from Brent, and he thanked me for what I did getting him out of Concord.
How many years after? I mean, were you still married to your first wife at the time?
Yeah.
Wow, that good for her, because that you helped him out on several occasions, getting him out of Concord, and all that stuff is like that's what it's all about. Rick is like, we have this big discussion in our country about someone earns some sort of $33 million and they think they're entitled to all of it, not realizing all the things that went into getting them to where they are today. And it's just you get into this, the windows. I mean the the blinders come on, and it's always good to have somebody there to advocate for you. And I'm glad she did that, because he clearly was not capable on his own of recognizing that you hooked him up,
Yeah, he wasn't.
When was the last time you saw him before he perished? I mean, he went so quick. He was actually facing jail time. By the way, I'll have to get back to you on that 82. I'm pretty sure Mosseri's playing drums on that.
Yeah,
it never came out like commercially. It was recorded at Club Front.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine Brent would want to use John. He's used to playing with him, so makes sense.
I just can't believe Mosseri's like, I'm not going out with that motherfucker again. That's the greatest story in the world, man. You have totally I'm like, I've waited 3 to 5 years to interview Rick Carlos, but you've made this so worth the wait, man. I mean, did you actually, were you able to stay in the music business, or what happened? Talk a little bit about after the Weir band, the kind of stuff you did.
I was in I joined a fusion band. These guys were really good players. It was Tim Cuney and
Tim Cuney.
Tim Cuney, Cootie Morris.
How do you spell Tim's last name?
Kuni.
Wow.
And these guys were all jazz trained. Guitar player went to Berkeley in, I guess, Boston it is. And they called me up. I think I had put a flyer in a music store. And they called me up. And I said, no, I don't play jazz. And they said, well, come over anyway and play. And so it ended up, I could play what they were playing. I couldn't read it, but I could play it. And I did that until, let's see, that group needed to work. We ended up doing club gigs again and playing some fusion, but not as much. And then...
I just want to be clear. After the Bob Weir, I seem to remember only one tour with you and Mosseri.
Yeah, with Weir?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Well, we had a gap. We were doing East Coast. We did some West Coast. And then we had a big gap, and then we got back together to play up in the Pacific Northwest. And then that was the end of it.
What? By the way, did you? I think that Jerry Garcia band was on those bills, and that's when
Yes.
Jerry. I just remember Jerry. The story was like Jerry's like saw Brent. And he's like, "Yeah, this cat might work in the Dead."
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where he heard Brent. Was we were opening for the Jerry Garcia band.
That is awesome. That is so unbelievably classic. So then after that, Brent joined the Dead. You went back to Concord.
I went back to Concord.
Again, Carlos back to Concord, wearing out a path to Concord, man.
That's right.
I always knew, I'm like, why does Concord resonate so hard? And I'm like, now I know. So much has been answered again tonight. You've opened doors for me, man. Did you... So the Fusion band had an opportunity to play some original stuff, but mainly you were playing top 40 stuff at clubs?
Yeah, and we had our second child. I had a son. That was 1980. He was born. And I thought, I got to get a job. My wife was telling me, you got to get a job. You know, these gigs aren't paying enough money. She's working. And I ended up getting a job with the City of Concord Parks Department in 1980. And I was doing the club gigs and then trying to get up at 6 a.m. and go do a day job.
Oh, man.
And then eventually I almost killed myself because I was getting home at 3 a.m. from the gigs, and then I had to be up at 6. And
you weren't even sleeping.
I wasn't, and I was driving home from the gig one night, and I fell asleep at the wheel. And just before I went off the road, I woke up, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. You know, the job is good. It's a steady thing. I'm going to have to leave the band. So I did. I quit playing. By 1983, I completely quit playing. And I didn't play again until 1993.
Wow. Well, I think you did that. I mean, it all sounds like you made the right decision. I mean, looking back on sort of your... What is sort of, are there any things musically today on your bucket list, or, you know, I wouldn't have ever asked this to anybody, you know, before COVID, but, you know, after all this insanity and sort of the state of the world and everything, I just wonder if there's anything that you feel inspired that you haven't done musically or that you still want to do in this life.
Well, in 93, you'll never guess who I hooked up with again.
Mosseri?
Shag Nasty.
Shag Nasty again. Well, I'm sorry. They must have been like, that must have been a hard breakup in '83.
It was.
But Blanchard always opens the door again for Carlos to.
He does, man.
I'm telling you, man,
blessed.
it's so beautiful, man. So you got horny to play, and they're like, "Yo, you can come back."
Yeah, it was Blanchard's sister brought us back together because it was David's 50th birthday or something. I can't remember. She wanted us to hook up and play, and we did, and then we got back together. And then I ended up meeting this woman at a Unity Center that turned out to be a really good singer-songwriter. And that's my current wife at this point.
I'm sorry, how many years back into Shag Nasty was that?
That's, 93, playing with Shag Nasty again. And 96, I met Lou, my future wife.
Wow.
And then she came out and started playing with Shag Nasty, and she's a violinist and a blues harp player and a mandolin player and guitar player. And so we started changing style a little bit, and she ended up fitting right in with the group.
Is McLean still in Shag Nasty?
McLean was there.
McLean is still there?
Yeah, McLean. And we just got together last weekend.
Wow.
Clontz, McLean, Blanchard, myself, and Lou.
Dude, so you're thinking about getting some gigs going, dude. I'm coming to every Shag Nasty gig, man. I'm serious, dude. Please let me know. I want to promote this band. I mean, dude, honestly, we just cooked for 76 minutes, man. I have to take a break, but let's try to do set 2, especially if you have a gig coming up. I would love to promote it and love to see you guys play live.
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen. We certainly don't have any gigs planned, but yeah, I'll keep you informed.
Also, I definitely need to hook up with McLean and Clontz too.
Yeah, Clontz has got a pretty good background in what he did musically. It's very interesting.
Well, yours is interesting too, Rick. I just I want to say I look forward to going back and listening to some of those Batdorf and Rodney records that you were on. Sort of check out that growling bass, and I'll send you some stuff. I don't know if you've heard that 78 tour, but it's pretty sprightly stuff, man.
You sent me the Roxy gig, I believe.
Yeah, it was, I think, the Palladium, or maybe. Did I mail you that?
Or was it the Palladium? Oh, anyway, you sent me a really good recording. It might have been the King Biscuit Flower. I don't know.
Yeah, I met with that. Stuff. God, that's so beautiful. Well, I mean, Brent. I just wanted to ask you. But let me ask you. When was the last time you actually saw Brent?
I think it was at that party.
So you did not. I mean, once your wife or he called you and apologized, you never talked to him again.
I don't think I did. I think that was it.
Wow. Thank you for humbling me, man. Giving me the real truth, man. I know this took a long time to come together, but I really needed to hear this.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I could supply whatever I could within, hopefully it's fairly accurate timeline-wise.
Well, I think you did a heck of a job, and we'll be in touch, man. Much love to you and your family.
No, thank you.
All right. Be cool, man. I'll get this out. I'm gonna send you a copy of this later, so thank you, and we'll get it up online and stuff.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Be cool, man. Talk to you soon.
Okay, Jake. Take care.
Take care, Rick. Bye.
Bye.